got an interesting question for you.
Sure.
So you know Jimmy and I don't have kids.
Yes, okay.
Human children. We have fur children.
Yes.
So if Jimmy and I were ever to get divorced, and I were to hire you,
Right.
I mean, obviously I can't hire you, but let's say hypothetically.
Right.
If I were to hire you, and we're arguing about custody of our fur children, our three fur children, what would you tell me?
Well, okay, this is what I tell you, and I would tell this to anybody who called me.
Sure.
There are states that may address pet custody and treat pets on par with children. Okay, Georgia is not one of those states.
No,
okay, Georgia almost never leads the nation on being the first to do something novel in the law.
We're just one of the last who still does jury trials and divorces.
Well, we and Texas, we both do jury trials and divorces. That's true. But back to pets. What I would tell you is if you told me that you had 2 large Dobermans and a cat, and you and your husband are divorcing, and we went through the laundry list of things, the house, the 401k, all that, and then you got to the pets, and you'd say, well, what are we going to do about the pets? I want custody. I would say, well, first of all, in Georgia, the word custody is inappropriate.
Doesn't make sense, right?
Because as much as you don't want me to say this to you, pets are property. They are not persons. With children, and a child is a person, we're talking about custody and visitation. Now, I'm not going to tell you that by consent you couldn't enter into an agreement in your divorce. There are things in a consent agreement rather than a judge or a jury decision. There are things in a consent agreement that you can do, and under principles of contract law, you can be held to it. So, for example, you could get all 3 of the pets, and you could agree by contract to let Jimmy, your ex-husband now, see these pets. Or he might even agree by contract to contribute for veterinary bills and things like this for these pets.
Which would be very helpful, right?
And you could actually craft something that looks a lot like custody of a child, and under general contract principles, the court's contempt powers could require the 2 of you to abide by the contract. But let's put all that aside. That's the easy answer.
Sure.
What if the 2 of you fight like cats and dogs, and you can't agree on anything, and you drop this in the lap of poor Judge Stacy Heydrich in DeKalb County, or poor Judge Kaysen in Gwinnett County? You know, these poor judges who get these weird fact patterns, and you say, Judge, we want you to decide what happens to these 2 dogs and this cat. The court's going to say, it's property, it's not a child, so I don't have authority to do this absent your agreement. But I strongly suspect that if a judge was making a decision about what to do with these pets, the judge would turn to the factors in Official Code of Georgia 1993, which lists out, is it 13 or 14 factors?
I want to say it's 13.
Yeah, it's something in the neighborhood of a dozen or more factors, like who's been the primary caretaker, who's been inclusive of the other party in letting the dogs, in this case, play with both of them, who's gone to the veterinarians with the dogs, who has done the things that nurture and take care of these pets. These are the same factors used in child custody cases, and I think a thoughtful judge, like Judge Bagley up in Forsyth County, very cerebral, he's going to think through the problem. He might say, you know what, y'all, you put this in my lap, I can't give you custody, but I can decide in terms of property who's going to get this dog, and I'm going to use these factors here, because it is a living, breathing thing.
Absolutely.
And I would actually ask a judge to use those factors, and I suspect a thoughtful judge would. But then, at the end of the day, today, under the status of the law today in Georgia, that's going to be a property decision.
Property as in like a chair. So
right.
That's
so
what really.
So if the judge, right. So if like the great Earl Glanville in Fulton County, great judge said, I've looked at the factors, and Alexa, you're getting these 2 Dobermans, and Jimmy, you get the cat. There cannot be a follow-on requirement that Jimmy pay, or that Jimmy gets a visitation. Now, again, by agreement, you may be able to pull that off. But I think if you dropped it in the judge's lap, he's going to say it's property. I may use these child factors, and here's what I'm going to do, and then you're done.
Well, and it's also one of those other things that if you do agree to this and put it into a settlement agreement and it becomes the final order of the court, the judge can't later modify it either, because it's one of those things he couldn't have done in the first place. Right.
Well, he can't modify it, and also property division can't be modified after the case is over and the appeal window's closed and the term of court's over. So now again, this is the end of January 2022. The law in this regard could change, but as of today, what I've just said follows the law.
I still think I get all the animals.
Oh, there's no doubt, no doubt. Anyway, if you have any questions about pets and custody, give us a call.